I wish to acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Principal, Professor Winston Moore, Mrs. Amanda Reifer, Deputy Dean, Faculty of Sport, Dr. Rudolph Alling, Head, the Academy of Sport, Cave Hill Campus, Ms. Tara Innes, Chair of Legacy Lecturer Subcommittee, Dr. Henderson Carter, the Head of the Department of History and Philosophy, Mr. Noel Wood, CEO of Nation Publishing, and Mr. Hayden Gill, Daily Editor and former Sports Editor, Nation Publishing. There have been numerous developments regarding technology over the years. These developments are the driving force for change within various countries. Innovation has been at the forefront in all fields of business and has given us the opportunity to reach stages that we thought impossible. Upgrades in technology has given us the different perspective to life. Watches, cars, and even cell phones all have smart technology within their software. Artificial intelligence has been around for a while, but is now dominating the technological market. We must therefore embrace technology in building resilience in our nations and in building our nations. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Hayden Gill, Daily Editor and former Sports Editor for the Nation Publishing, to give remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. Good evening, everyone. With protocols having been established, I can go straight into it and bring you warm greetings on behalf of the management and staff of the Nation Publishing Company, and extend the heartiest congratulations to the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies in celebrating your 60th anniversary. It's a significant milestone that you're celebrating, and you're doing so in a year in which we at the Nation are also celebrating our 50th anniversary. And I dare say that the two entities have a number of similarities, and perhaps one of them is the value that both entities place on sports. When I left secondary school in the early 1990s, I don't usually like to hint at my age, but for the purpose of this exercise and the point I'm trying to make, it's perhaps useful to do so, right? But at that time, Cave Hill was just about approaching its 30th anniversary. And I think what has happened over the next 30 years and what Cave Hill has done in sports certainly is significant. And I can just name a few, right? One, the development of the 3Ws Oval, which is a state-of-the-art facility with lights, indoor nets, media center, the full works. And the 3Ws Oval, I think it's widely regarded as the #2 cricket venue in Barbados behind Kensington Oval, right? Two, the construction of the Usain Bolt Sports Complex, which today, I think, is the premier athletics facility in Barbados, given the challenges that we've had with the National Stadium. Three, the dominance of UWI teams in the top leagues of the Barbados Cricket Association, the Barbados Football Association, and the Barbados Netball Association, to the extent that UWI has now become the envy of opposing teams. And fourth, but by no means least, the establishment of a faculty of sports that offers bachelor's and master's programs in sports science and sports coaching. So, given the significant infrastructural development of sporting facilities that we've seen at Cave Hill, the success on the fields and on the courts, and the provision of academic courses that can now enhance the qualifications of young people, I dare say that the contribution made by the Cave Hill campus at the University of Sports is indeed very significant. In very much the same way that UWI places emphasis on sport, I think we too, at the nation, over the past 50 years, have also done so. In terms of UWI, I started tracing the history when I was in secondary school. In terms of the nation, what the nation was doing in sports started probably when I was in Pampers. Right? Okay. In terms of the nation and sports, just look at the extent to which the nation has gone in traveling the globe to report on the achievements of our sports people on the international and regional stage. Tony Cozier and Gordon Brooks, household names beyond these shores, were there to capture the success of West Indies teams over many years. The nation has also covered multiple Olympic Games, including the event in 2000, when Obadele Thompson became Barbados' first individual Olympic medalist. We've covered countless Carifta Games, countless regional cricket tournaments, and the list can go on and on in terms of what the nation has done, perhaps second to none in terms of what other media houses throughout the region has done. Just also look at the many pages of sports coverage that we have. We offer our readers each week approximately 56 pages of sports coverage. Again, I think something that few media in the region can boast of. And the pages offer variety, from the analytical writers' roundtable in the Sunday Sun to the information-packed king of stats in the Weekend Nation. And we cover everything under the sun, be it a test match at Kensington or a community event in the country. So all of that speaks volumes to the importance that the nation places on sports. As I said earlier, UWI is now providing sports programs in terms of academics. So sports can now be a viable option for young people to pursue as a career. The reality, however, is that in this part of the world, sports, however, is still not seen as a profession. It is more seen as a pastime. The challenge for us, and when I say us, UWI and the nation, is how do we help in charting the course forward in taking sport to that next level, where the average sportsman can aspire to something in sport and make a comfortable living from it. We need to move towards the establishment of professional leagues in Barbados, be it in cricket, football, track and field, netball. And it's not just for sports people are talking about, the administrative support or the different support services. So in very much, in the UK and other parts of the world where the Premier League clubs provide employment for, significant numbers of people, we need to move to that level. And I think UWI has done its part in trying to move towards that direction. Back in 2013, when the nation had a series of town hall meetings, one of them, the topic was, how do we move sports to a professional level? That was in 2013. 10 years on, I don't think we've made any progress, or we've made very little progress in that regard. The challenge, therefore, for us, nation and UWI, is perhaps to work in partnership with government, the Barbados Olympic Association, the national federations, and the private sector in moving sports to that next level where it becomes a viable industry in Barbados. When I come back here, God willing, 15 years from now, when you'll be celebrating your 75th anniversary, and I probably will be on the verge of retirement, I hope by then that Barbados would have moved sport in a new direction and we can have both of professional sport leagues in the country. In closing, I look forward to tonight's presentation from Amanda. I have known Amanda for some time, even before she came to UE. She did work on Fontebelle for a little while, not at the Nation though, just down the road, down at Cricket Legends of Barbados. Amanda is one who's never short of ideas or suggestions, so I'm sure that what she brings to us tonight will provide food for thought and will prove to be very enlightening. The topic of sports and artificial intelligence, it's one that is still in its infancy stages. From what I was told, I could have used Chat GPS, and for this speech, I could have put in Nation, UWI, professionalism, and a speech could have been generated for me. But that wasn't my approach, I did my homework. But I'm sure Amanda will delve into it a lot as the evening progresses. So once again, sincere congratulations to the Cave Hill campus of the university on achieving your 60th anniversary. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Our next speaker is no stranger to the University of the West Indies. She was the recipient of the Barbados Sports Administrator of the Year Award in 2016 and sat on the Minister of Sports Standing Committee for the National Sports Development in Barbados. She was a member of the Cricket Committee, Cricket West Indies, and was selected in 2020 in the International Cricket Council's Future Leadership Program. She was the architect behind the establishment of the first academic sports programs at the Cave Hill campus, namely the Certificate in Management and Administration of Sport, and both the Bachelor's and Master's in Sports Science degrees. She successfully negotiated the first double degree with the University of New Brunswick in Canada to deliver the Master's in Sports Science degree. She currently holds the position of Deputy Dean with the responsibility for business development and international partnerships in the university's Faculty of Sport. She is here to give a lecture on artificial intelligence and the future for sport. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly give a round of applause for Mrs. Amanda Reifer, Deputy Dean for the Faculty of Sport.
Good evening, everyone. You will notice that my colleagues are dressed very corporate and official, but if I just step to the side, you will see my attire. They tell me that this is how they dress in Silicon Valley. And having watched several TED Talks and several videos with the late Steve Jobs, this is how he used to dress. Sneakers, jeans, and a blazer. So tonight, I will be a techie, albeit for 40 minutes of delivering this lecture. But I trust that you would enjoy what I've prepared for you. And I just want to thank you all for coming out. I know protocols have been observed, but I do want to acknowledge Professor Winston Moore, the Deputy Principal of Cave Hill Campus, of course. And I want to acknowledge Dr. Rudolph Allen, the head of the Academy of Sport at Cave Hill, Dr. Grant, my colleague, the operations manager, and of course, Dr. Henderson Carter, and colleagues all across the faculties at Cave Hill. Thank you. Friends, BCSI, BFVA, students. I'm delighted to be here to give this lecture this evening. Artificial intelligence and the future of sport. We are in an era where technology and athleticism blend seamlessly together. While I was preparing for this lecture, I must admit that there was a lot of information overload. There's so much information out there on artificial intelligence and its impact on every industry. And one of the things that I would want you to take away this evening is the understanding that no man can hide, no woman can hide. This is going to impact every single person, every single industry. as it evolves. The pace at which it is evolving is extremely rapid. And if I can intrigue you enough this evening, I would want you to walk away thinking, how is this AI situation going to affect me? The future of sport and AI is a very important topic for us here, not only around the world, in the region as well. And tonight, I want to break it down in manageable bites, very little jargon, so we all can understand. And I believe that you will find it very intriguing. So our focus tonight will be, what is AI? I think it's important for us to define what it is as it stands today, because it's rapidly evolving. How AI is changing sport. We'll also take a look at the pros and cons of AI in sports, as well as very important ethical considerations and implications. And last but not least, I want to look at the Caribbean and the implications for sport. I won't be long, but I think it's important for us to delve in as much as we can in the next 40 minutes. So I was born in the 80s, and I grew up watching, right there, the Star Trek and the Next Generation. How many of you know this series? Yes. My love of sci-fi is directly related or correlated to this series, which was first aired in 1987, and it was around for decades, and now they're evolving it. There's the new Star Trek. But during that time in the 80s and 90s, many of what we saw on the telly seemed far-fetched, seemed impossible. And I think it's important because what we think is far-fetched today, 30 years from now will not be as we saw when we watched Star Trek 30 years ago. So we remember these faces, those of you that know it well. And I just want to mention very quickly some of the tech and AI that was purported back there in the 1980s. Communications was a big part of the Star Trek series, where you had characters, this may sound familiar, characters using small handheld devices. Sounds familiar? Small handheld devices that looked similar to the flip-flop phones, and today we are using smartphones, and today the concept of communication anywhere, anyhow, anytime was once thought to be science fiction, but is now our reality. So we also remember Beverly Crusher. Who remembers Dr. Beverly Crusher? Yes? I see a hand in the back. Dr. Beverly Crusher in Star Trek in the 1980s had a handheld device called a tricorder. And this device was used to scan patients. And with that one device, she could diagnose illnesses instantaneously. Today, some 30 years later, there are several medical tricorders in development using artificial intelligence, analyzing patient data, diagnosing at a very rapid pace. This is revolutionizing healthcare in the world. Once thought to be impossible. I have to continue with two more Star Trek gimmicks. You remember the characters going into their rooms and speaking to a machine and saying, "Make me food," or "create clothing," or any item, and it would be created out of thin air using what they called back then a replicator. But we don't have replicators yet. But we do have something called 3D printers. 3D printers that can create objects out of plastic, metal, and other materials. This is only in its infancy stage, but imagine the potential to the manufacturing industry. And who knows, within 5-10 years, we may see those replicators that we saw 30 years ago. You saw characters speaking to aliens, the Klingons, and help me here, guys, y'all know this. Some of you may know this better than me. But they spoke different languages, and on Star Trek, you had these devices called universal translators. Now we have something called a translation app. I think you get the point. Sci-fi movies, in my opinion, they give us a glimpse into what the future will be. Do you remember the Jetsons? I'm aging myself here a little bit, but the Jetsons. And the Jetsons would be driving cars without, yes, and self-driving cars. Well, it was in the air. But now we have Tesla. Compliments of Elon Musk. And all of this potential to go where no one has gone before. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, let's go, as Jean-Luc Picard says, where no one has gone before, in AI. Let's start with a very simple definition of what artificial intelligence is in layman's terms. Artificial intelligence refers to machines or computer programs that are designed to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as recognizing speech, understanding natural language, making decisions, and solving problems. Artificial intelligence systems use what they call advanced algorithms and technologies. The techies in the room will understand this. But essentially, it's machine learning and neural networks to learn from data, adapt to new information, and make decisions on their own without human intervention. The goal of AI is to create what they call intelligent machines that can perform complex tasks and solve problems in ways that mimic human intelligence. So that's the definition. And artificial intelligence and the impact of it on sport, you find it permeating areas such as data analysis, smart equipment, fan engagement. So those of you marketers, sport broadcasters, persons that are in that field, take note. I'm going to delve a little bit more into that. Sport broadcasting, and I dare say, Hayden, Nation Publishing Sport Desk, as well as officiating. And AI is changing the way we analyze sports data, how we train athletes, how we broadcast, how we engage. So I'm going to look at, firstly, the whole notion of AI and sport data analysis. Data is king, they say, in the world we live in, and being able to analyze it is equally as important. AI allows us to analyze vast amounts of data in real time. I think this is really important for us to differentiate real time. I would dare say, benefit of AI is that real time. In sport, real time matters. In broadcasting, time is currency. And so this analyzing of these vast amounts of data in real time at a very rapid speed provides athletes and coaches with insights that were previously thought to be impossible. And being able to analyze player performance data in real time, you can imagine the impact that has in coaches being able to make better decisions, strategizing, and this gives them a competitive edge. And let me just stop here by saying that what I'm saying isn't done right now in the way it needs to in the Caribbean, but this is where we need to go, and this is where it's evolving. being able to analyze player movements and techniques and strategies and providing insights. That's a key terminology there with what AI does. And for coaches themselves, being able to improve in terms of their coaching skills, their techniques, using AI platforms is really a game changer for coaches. Smart equipment in sport is really big. I've been researching what is to come. So we're talking about the future of sport. So part of what I'm going to mention is what we have and where it's going. And there's something called smart shoes. Has anybody heard of these as yet? Okay, we have a tech building. Very happy. So essentially what the smart shoes, so what is expected to do, again, powered by AI, is you put on the shoes as an athlete, and let's say you are running, and it can detect your stride, and it can suggest a more efficient way of running real time. Imagine that. Smart balls. These are products. So for example, the AI is embedded into a basketball, a football, any ball, and it can track, for example, a basketballer training, you shoot, and it can track and give feedback on how you shot the ball and actually give you feedback in terms of the technique you use to shoot it. Imagine that. Fantastic. Wearable devices. This is something that I know is happening right now, especially in the UK with the Premier League. It's used a lot in North American sport, where you would see at training sessions, the players would have on these jackets, and this wearable tech gives a lot of data on the physiological, like sleep patterns, heart rate, muscle, and so forth. But the tech is expected to exponentially evolve, and with that jacket or whatever they're wearing or touching is expected in the future to give significantly more information on those players. So imagine what that means in terms of personalized training, in terms of understanding what's going on in that player's body. Yes? And remember that word body, because we're going to go somewhere tonight that you may not have expected. Officiating. The technology is being used by referees across sports to better their decision making. We as fans like that a lot, because we always cuss the television when they make a bad decision. However, detecting, for example, offside, goal line technology, fouls, runouts, and ball tracking, all of that is happening using AI. And the accuracy, because in officiating, accuracy is key. A lot of the referees and umpires are graded in terms of their level of accuracy. So the training that can be done, as well as we think about the future of sport and AI and officiating, is going to go really rapidly in terms of simulations. Just like how you have pilots doing simulations, now the AI is going to take officials through that type of simulation. And then we have broadcasting. This is exciting. When I was researching this, I found this very profound, what AI is doing and will be doing in terms of sport broadcasting, in terms of analyzing data from previous games, broadcasters and commentators being able to make predictions, the predictability of it, automated camera control, virtual graphics and augmented reality happening real time as you're watching the game, as you're on the telly watching, you're seeing all these insights happening on the go. And it really is transforming sport broadcasting in a way, even in terms of the technical aspect of camera positioning, automated cameras, taking the best angles, and then at the same time, the AI is able to generate a highlight of, let's say, in an overchange, if I could use the cricket analogy, at the same time. For those of you that understand television, you usually have to wait till the end of the match, you see the highlights, or a long break, but now AI is allowing you to give that highlight real time instantaneously in a matter of seconds. Imagine the potential that would have in terms of the experience and the viewership. I mentioned the fan engagement, getting up and close and personal with athletes virtually. AI-powered virtual reality can transport fans into the game real time. You realize I'm using real time all the time. So imagine you are a super fan of Arsenal football team, and you can actually be transported with AI onto the field when the game is playing at the Emirates, which I went to. It's amazing ground. And you can see Saka and all these people, and you could feel like you're actually next to them. This is where AI is going. And the chatbots, at the same time, chatbots are answering fans' questions and providing information before, during, and after the game. So fan engagement, we know that fan engagement is a really important aspect of sport now, because remember, fans are gold in terms of merchandising and revenue potential, commercializing. Fans are absolutely critical in building teams and franchises. So fan engagement is high up on the list of priorities for many owners, sport organizations. For those of you who don't know a chatbot is a computer program that can simulate conversation with human users through messaging platforms, websites, or mobile apps. Betting. Now, I had some experience with the betting companies last year with some friends of mine in BIM 10, and they were able to successfully negotiate sponsorship with Dream 11. Dream 11 is a betting company out of India, $8 billion, Professor Moore, $8 billion company. And I looked into how AI is going to impact betting, and I found it fascinating. So remember, you have the betting company in the Dream 11, and you have the people betting. Who you think gonna win with AI? Who you think gonna win? Who you think has the advantage with AI? Can't hear nobody. Nobody talking to me tonight? The company? Let me tell you something. Andrea, let me tell you. So if AI is being used to enhance betting odds, identify trends. I have an economist in the house, so he can understand this right away. Identify trends, patterns, making more accurate predictions, using AI algorithms, analyzing historical data, including analyzing the weather and other factors real time. Where do you think the advantage is going to lie? And I think it has the betting companies a little nervous, because if the people betting are winning, then, because the betting industry is, the odds are never for the person that's gambling. It's always to the advantage of the betting company. But the payouts anticipated, I hope y'all following me here. The payouts that are going to be anticipated with persons paying for the AI tools and platforms that are now available, the thousands of betting platforms available, gives them advantages that I don't think the betting companies are ready for. So that Dream 11, $8 billion may drop a little bit, Professor Moore. But these are the things, these are the applications that I found in my research. There's so much more, but I felt that these were the ones that stood out for me and things that we can consider. And some of these betting companies, you see DafaBet, Dream 11, Paddy Power Bet, 365 Betway, and Unibet are some of their tens and there's hundreds of betting companies out there. So we'll have to watch and see who wins in that one. So let's move to the advantages and disadvantages of AI. The pros and the cons. We mentioned real-time data. That's very important in terms of the analysis. We mentioned that already. We mentioned the predictive analysis that AI can predict outcomes of games. And in terms of operations and streamlining operations, automating things like ticket sales, scheduling, staffing, that's a big one. A lot of fear around job losses as a result of AI. Improve safety. So what is happening now, AI is used to monitor athletes for signs of concussion or other injuries, helping to prevent long-term damage. So the actual technology is being used to monitor physiological and so forth. And remember I told you that we're going somewhere here. We're going where no one has gone before, and you'll see where I go with this. Cost savings is another advantage, because if the cost of training equipment comes down as a result of being able to invest in these AI tools, then what AI can do with a platform or software would diminish the need for certain types of equipment that are oftentimes very costly. And imagine the new opportunities that can result from AI in terms of new sports, but also combining certain elements of technology and the evolution of sport. It's going to go places that I don't think we can even fathom. And so this creates new opportunities, maybe for new sports, new fans, new opportunities for sponsorship, and so forth. And these are all fantastic pros, but let's take a look at a very interesting, a very, very, very interesting phenomenon that's happening right now in the AI world that I want to share with you and discuss. All of these fantastic AI software. I remember about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I must admit, I don't know if anybody has been following the AI, but I think about 5 weeks ago something happened in the world, or 6 weeks maybe, where you saw all of these AI tools and side hustles. I don't know if you're on Instagram and the reels and stuff, but all these things start coming in. Oh, AI, what was happening? So apparently, the AI tools that you're seeing now being promoted and advertised on Instagram and all these different platforms went to what you call open source. And my techie will understand. Open source means it's open for everybody. Open source means it's like internet. You know, the internet is for everyone. And there was a complete disruption, if you could call it, but all of these AI, everything was AI. And I said, what is going on? So I am not a techie, but I like to be on the cutting edge. And I started to do my research. And I was amazed at the type of apps and tools, and I was just fascinated. And then came this. Tech leaders sign an open letter urging developers to pause AI experiments. Why did they do that? This thing is amazing. Like, why would you want to pause? Why is Elon Musk? Why is Elon Musk asking to pause? Why is Stephen Hawking? Why is Sam Altman? And I'll go a little bit into who these people are. Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, so ChatGPT-4. He's the CEO of that company, of which Elon Musk has investment in. Elon Musk, we all know. Who doesn't know Elon Musk? Is the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla. Stephen Hawking, a world-renowned physicist and cosmologist, forgive me. And let's hear what they're saying. So these scientists, more than 2,000 scientists, researchers, industry leaders call for a pause of AI development in an open letter. The scientists who called for this pause did so out of concern for the potential risks. What were these risks? The dangers associated with the development of advanced artificial intelligence. And they argue that AI systems have the potential to be developed in ways that are harmful to humans, and that they should be developed in a way that ensures that the ethical and social implications of AI, and for the establishment of guidelines and best practices for the development and deployment of AI systems. So Sam Altman, who created ChatGPT, his company, he said, and I quote, I do think we should be quite thoughtful about this. If we create some super intelligent AI that has this goal alignment problem, the AI is going to win. I need you all to really zone in here. These are people that developed the AI, that spent billions of dollars speaking. And I go on, he says, this is why I think it's really important that we pause and create a thoughtful regulatory framework for how we build AI. Elon Musk, and I quote, AI is a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization. Let me repeat that. AI is a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization. I don't think people fully appreciate that. They think like it's a driverless car running into a tree or something. It's not. It's going to be much more like a sort of Terminator-like scenario. Y'all remember Terminator? I watch all of them because it's a sci-fi buff. But remember, we started out by saying that what we see today, 30 years ago, was impossible. So if the Elon Musk of this world and the Sam Altons, are saying we need to pause, we need to listen. Stephen Hawking, and I quote, success in creating AI would be the biggest event in human history. Unfortunately, it might also be the last unless we learn how to avoid the risks. And I don't want to bring fear and fear-mongering, but I think it's important for me to also mention some of the quotes by colleagues across the world in this AI space. Unchecked development of AI could result in the creation of a new and powerful technology that could be used for malicious purposes, such as cyber attacks or surveillance. We need to ensure that AI is developed in a responsible and ethical manner to prevent these risks. That quote came from Stuart Russell, computer science professor at UC Berkeley. AI has the potential to revolutionize our world for the better, we agree, from improving healthcare to reducing carbon emissions, but we need to ensure that it is developed in a way that is transparent, accountable, and aligned with human values. Isn't that important in this day and age, especially now? This requires collaboration between governments, industry, and civil society. That came from Genevieve Bell, anthropologist and technology researcher. Unregulated AI could exacerbate existing social and economic inequalities, as those who have access to the technology and its benefits may become even more powerful and wealthy. We need to ensure that AI is developed in a way that benefits all of society, not just the privileged few. Kate Crawford is an AI researcher and professor at New York University. I'm not flogging a dead horse, but I think it's important for me to say these things. Best practices for AI development should include transparency, explainability, and accountability. And developers should be able to explain how their AI systems work and why they make certain decisions, and they should be held accountable for any negative impacts that result from their use. That came from Timnit Gebru, AI ethics researcher and co-founder of Black in AI. Now, is this a utopian view? In the history of mankind, or humankind, have human beings ever been able to do the right thing? Does history show that? In a capitalist world we live in, oftentimes it is the fittest will survive. You know, have we ever, as human beings, generally speaking, pause and take a look at the greater good when it comes to anything, for that matter? But the experts are adamant, and were adamant, that this AI not be put on the internet, and that it would open up a Pandora's box, and it has. Mr. Gill mentioned that these are the early stages of discussion of AI, but I would argue that we are far behind, because one of the experts in AI, as I was listening to one of the podcasts, can't remember the colleague's name, but he mentioned that ChatGPT has the IQ now of 155. Einstein was 160, and that as every day, as human beings use the AI, every day that IQ goes up. And he mentioned that in 6 months, it may be 1,000 times Einstein. In a year, 10,000. In 5 years, 1 billion. We don't know the implications of what that would mean, and I think that is why those that have spent the billions are warning us and screaming for us to pause. Some ethical considerations would be, is it cheating? Is AI or using AI cheating? And many say no, it's a tool. And we have in sport in particular, we have performance enhancement tools and we analyze, so there's no difference. AI is simply a tool, but we know better, because I can tell you now, I don't know if we have any sport administrators. I see Ryan Brathwaite there from the BOA. But I was born in the 80s. And I remember in the 90s when I started playing national volleyball, and so I remember, you watch the Olympics, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, but you had some Germans and some Russians looking very masculine. That was before there was testing. Performance enhancement drugs were being used, and the thought was, and it still is the same, that you want the competitive edge. You want to win. You want to win. Millions, billions being invested in sport. Countries investing a lot of money in sport, so they want the edge. So performance enhancement drugs are being used for a long time. I would argue still being used because the technology, the regulators never catch up with the technology. It never does. And the same will happen for AI. And we will talk about regulation. But the point I'm making is that AI is now, you can bet your bottom dollar that AI tools and platforms are being developed to give North American countries, these countries are already discussing and investing in AI. And in this case, I don't know when was drug testing. I know Flojo retired before the drug testing came. That's a very controversial topic, but I don't know what year the testing came in, but that kind of, before she retired, but that kind of started a whole journey of testing. But by that time, how many medals were won with people that were using performance enhancement drugs? So I'm drawing a similarity here as we discuss AI, that it will be used to cheat, inverted commas. People will cheat until such time as the regulators are able to catch up. And let me also say that as it relates to regulation and control, I would argue based on my research, that it is virtually impossible to catch up with AI. Remember I just mentioned where the AI is going to be in 6 months? How can a human regulate, study it, how can a human regulate a tech that's 10,000 times brighter in Bayesian parlance than us? How can you regulate? These are real discussion points that we need to be having as it relates to regulation. It's a very serious, very disconcerting. As a sport administrator myself, I want to call the minister tomorrow. I want to call people because we need to sound the alarm here that these conversations have to be had now if we are going to attempt to regulate, far less try to control this beast that has been unleashed on the world. And the notion of leveling the playing field, I like that a lot. We talk a lot about that in the Caribbean, leveling. We're going to level the playing field. I always like to look at the glass as half full. That's me. Very optimistic. But, and I continue to be optimistic because I believe that if we consider what the Caribbean has produced in terms of talent and sport in the last 3-4 decades in various sports, very small size, and what we've been able to do punch above. And at that time, other countries had much more resources than us. Just look at a 100-meter final of a Olympic, and you will see how many people from the Caribbean. So how do we do that? We've done tremendously well. There's something about this Caribbean region. We got something. I know Dr. Cardiff is historic. Our ancestors, I don't know what's going on, but there's something about the Caribbean and our ability to really compete despite our challenges. So I do believe that if we do invest and we get on the AI train early, we could compete, but level playing field, I don't believe that we will have that because, again, the way this is going, I am not, well, I remain optimistic, but I'm hoping that we can get ahead of it. And we're not in the Caribbean known for getting ahead of anything, but I think that it is sufficient serious issue that we have to sound the alarm and get ahead of it and start to procure a lot of these AI platforms, the tools and so forth, so that we can actually compete. And I mentioned here some of in this slide, some of the AI software that is available, and you see the prices. I mean, what I like about AI tools is that there's something for every pocket, and even though it may be basic is better than nothing. So I do believe money should not be a reason why we don't pursue some of these products and give our athletes, give our coaches, give our industry an edge, because it does help. There are many pros to it, and we really do have to see what we can incorporate into our own personal spaces. So I mentioned that we're going somewhere where no one has gone before, and I won't be Amanda unless I look at some real serious sci-fi business. But that's not really sci-fi. AI and transhumanism, it's not sci-fi. Let me just say that categorically, it is not sci-fi. The notion of transhumanism is real. I see my guy nodding there, my friend. It is real. For those of you that don't know what transhumanism is, let me educate you tonight. Transhumanism is a movement that seeks to merge humans with artificial intelligence in order to enhance our physical and cognitive abilities. This includes cyborgs, creating Terminator, cyborgs, implanting computer chips in our brains, and there are people signing up for it already, just saying. and developing AI systems that can augment our decision-making processes. The ultimate goal of transhumanism is to transcend the limitations of the human body and mind by integrating with technology, thereby creating a new type of being that is smarter, faster, and more resilient than any human could ever be. And I quote that from Peter Diamandis. He's an entrepreneur and a futurist. That is what is transhumanism. Is this impossible? No, it is not. AI is being used to develop microchips, and let's talk about some of the companies that are developing microchips. Neuralink, our friend Elon Musk again. Neuralink is founded by Elon Musk and developing implantable brain-machine interfaces that use AI to help people with neurological disorders. DARPA's Neural Engineering System Design is a program that is developing implantable devices that use AI to help restore sensory and motor function to people with disabilities. IBM researches neuromorphic chip. This project is developing a chip that mimics the way the brain processes information, which could be used to develop AI-powered prosthetics and other devices. University of California, Berkeley's Neural Dust project. This project is developing tiny wireless sensors that could be implanted in the body to monitor everything from brain activity to internal organ function. University of Pennsylvania's Smart Contact Lens project. This is a project developing contact lenses that use AI to monitor glucose levels in people with diabetes. This is fantastic work, amazing work, noble work. One would even argue humanitarian work. And what does this mean to the world of sport? So it means that we can have enhanced performance. So we have these transhumanist technologies such as gene editing. Let me repeat that. AI and cyborgs can be used to enhance athletes' performance. So for example, you have this gene editing that used to create athletes with higher muscle mass. I want y'all to follow me here because we were just having a conversation about the and performance enhancement drugs. So, and the thing is about this, so let me just pause a second. If you have a microchip in your brain and you get enhanced muscle mass as an athlete, you have faster reaction times and greater endurance, how are you gonna know? You could tell when the performance enhancement drugs in the early days, right here, then you could tell that the women looked a little more masculine, buffed. The voice changed, acne. You saw those physiological reactions to the drugs. They got better over time, over decades. But how are you going to tell if somebody got a chip in the brain? Dr. Grant? AI will scan it? AI can scan it, but remember there's a timeline we're talking. So we're talking this is being developed now. So I'm just making the point, very good point, that AI can scan it, but let me go on, I'll get back to that. AI is being used in terms of transhumanism for injury prevention and recovery. So you have this transhumanist technology that could be used to prevent and recover. So recovery exoskeletons can be used to protect athletes, especially during the high-impact sports. You have regenerative medicine that could be used to speed up the healing process. New sports, transhumanism technologies could create new sports. We have cyborgs could be competing in sports. I remember 30 years ago, cyborgs competing in sport, transhumans competing in sports who have greater endurance and strength. The transhumanist conversation needs to be had now because the regulators of sport, it is coming. So we need to have the discussion, the governing bodies, the industry professionals, the athletes, everybody needs to have a conversation about transhumanist technology and the impact of sport. And I just say that to say that similar to the transgender discussion in sport, I love conversation. I love robust conversation. That's why we are an academic institution. And I want to see Dr. Deschamps is here. I want to see more conversations about transgenders in sport. We need to be talking about it so we can have the conversation, so we can find solutions, because we do overall believe in inclusivity, but we also believe in fairness and equity. Let me get back on track. AI and the Caribbean, and the question of how we can leverage opportunities. And we can leverage these opportunities. We can invest in AI research and development. I can speak for the Faculty of Sport. In our faculty board, we're having conversations about AI and how we can use education and bring it into the fray in terms of our academic programs. And I also want to say that AI, as I mentioned before, every faculty needs to be talking, law needs to be talking about AI. It needs to be had that we embrace it and we responsibly introduce it. And we have that necessary, pedagogy and that robust discussion and the academic, discussion around it, but we can't ignore it. From a sport perspective, we can look at AI-powered sports analytics programs, and definitely we can incorporate those into our programs. All the wearable technologies, yes, we can use the AI-powered fan engagement tools, definitely incorporate that into our whole ecosystem. And of course, AI-powered sport education programs, very important tools that we can use to not only sensitize, but really revolutionize how we teach, because as Hayden said, Professor Moore, we even discussed AI and education. That's another lecture. I don't know if you're going to give that one. But there is a school of thought that in educational institutions are going to be severely impacted by AI, because you could get a degree using AI, or the information that a degree will give you. Not only will the degree give you information, the AI give you the information, but the AI going to tell you how to use it, and the AI going to tell you how to monetize it. And then the AI going to tell you, listen to me, this is what you do, this. What are you going to spend $100,000 for? These are real conversations that are being had. Again, I'm sure that our academic institution, or my alma mater, Cave Hill campus, is ahead of the game, Professor. But I just want to bring to you tonight these really important discussions that we need to be having. And I have a quote. I have created my own quote. I have. And let me say this as I am about to close. In the ever-evolving landscape of sport, the Caribbean must recognize the potential of artificial intelligence as a game changer in the industry. As the world becomes more interconnected and technology advances at an unprecedented pace, we must stay ahead of the curve. We cannot be content with past glories. We must constantly strive for new heights, leveraging AI to achieve greatness. Amanda B. Reifer. The Caribbean we cannot allow ourselves to be left behind in the AI race. And I just want to close with 2 slides. This slide here is really important. And I'll tell you a very, very quick story about resilience and the fact that you can do a lot with nothing. Back in 2017, I conceptualized the Pace Like Fire program, and it came after a conversation with the then chairman of selectors, Courtney Brown, our friend. He was chairman of selectors of Cricket West Indies, and we were at Kensington Oval in the president's suite, and I went up to Courtney and I said, Courtney, if there was one thing He was chairman selectors. If there was one thing that you could change or do for West Indies cricket, what would it be? He said, Amanda, girl, listen, fast bowling. We need pace. We're struggling. We can't bowl out nobody. West Indies cricket was built on fast bowling. I started good. A year later, we had Pace Like Fire. Pace Like Fire was designed to show that sports science could be used. It was a pilot to increase the speed of anybody. And you know what we did? I gotta give Flow Sports some props because they sponsored us going all around the Caribbean in 2018 with a speed gun. That's all we had. A speed gun. It ain't the best neither, but it was a speed gun. We went to Jamaica, we went to Guyana, we went to Trinidad, we went to St. Kitts, St. Lucia, and of course, can't left out Barbados. And we were able to record the pace, the raw pace of over 250 people that nobody never hear about yet. And it was an impossible task, but let me just say, we had female and male. And we narrowed it down for the purposes of the pilot to 10 males and 5 females, and we brought them into a sports science program called Pace Like Fire. 1 year, and we gave them everything. We brought the best biomechanics, best exercise physiologists, brought sports psychologists. We had even mental skills. We had life coaching. Coaching, of course, from full coaches, of course. We have the best coaches. And you know what? That little pilot, and I got to give up thanks to Sagicor as well. Sagicor was able to sponsor us as well. And we saw increases in speed and accuracy with every single one of those candidates in that program. And we had a lot of money. And I say this to say that we used human intelligence. We didn't have the benefits of AI in the way that it is available today, but I can tell you that at least 3 or 4 of those players went on to play for their national teams, both female and male. Some went into West Indies A-teams. And this is just a pilot. So if we can do this in 2018, 2019, COVID hit in 2020, and we weren't able to do phase 2, but we had enough. And I'm proud to stand in front of you here to say that the president of Cricket West Indies contacted us at the faculty and said, what we can do with Pace Like Fire, we want it. And I say that to say that we can, where there's will. And I can tell you that for the last 2 years, I have been speaking to colleagues across the globe, scientists and data transformation, artificial intelligence experts. And we're not ready yet, Professor Moore. We're working, we're in the trenches, but we're certainly looking at how we're going to use AI to develop Pace Like Fire and other programs for other disciplines. And I want to also say, I'll leave you with this thought. What have we done in the last 20 years? We have been left behind. And this is personal for me because I'm a sport administrator that loves my Caribbean. And I take it personal when we talk about we got potential. I'm tired of hearing about potential. We've been left behind. We're behind 20 years behind other countries. I travel all over the world, and oftentimes I'm the only person from the Caribbean in the room, and oftentimes only woman as well, only black woman in the room. Happy to be there, proud to be there, representing, that my mouth big so I can talk. But it is it is, and I'm sure my other colleagues that from KFIL that travel, they say the same thing, they experience the same thing, like all these things happening, and we are so excited to bring it back to the Caribbean, but we don't have the requisite embracing of what we want to bring, so we got to do it ourselves. The Caribbean has always been a region of great potential. However, in the age of technology, we cannot afford to be left behind. The world is rapidly evolving, and artificial intelligence has become a game changer. And we must embrace the AI, and we must leverage it. And we must do it for our athletes, and we must do it for our sport administrators, and we must do it for our coaches, and we must do it for generations of athletes coming behind. It is not difficult, it is not impossible. We have to go where others have not gone before. And this slide here of this great man, Usain Bolt, a product of the Caribbean, because I'm a regionalist, look what he has achieved and we have achieved collectively without great resources, but this came without AI. So spare a thought for if we do invest in some form of AI, where we can go. I just want to end by saying that I am very optimistic and excited to see where AI is going to go and how we are going to be able to use it as a region. I commit publicly here tonight as a sport administrator that the Faculty of Sport will be leading the way as an educational institution in this discussion, and because we're not just academics, we're academic practitioners. So we can do. We're not just going to talk, we're going to do like we did with Pace Like Fire, like we're going to do with all the other projects that we have. But we will lead the way. It's our responsibility. And we're going to go forward in this discussion and this pursuit of leveraging AI in sport. And let's see where it goes. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Reifer, for that enlightening lecture. When Amanda spoke about Star Trek just now, she brought back some memories about those old James Bond movies. If you guys remember, Bond used to speak on his watch when he was talking to other agents, and what's her name, Moneypenny? He was speaking on the watch there. The first Bond movie was produced in 1962. That's 61 years ago, right? So you can really see that smartwatches were conceptualized long ago, right? Artificial intelligence seems to be the next step in our evolution. With regards to sport, having a heavy reliance on artificial intelligence, it seems that it is here to stay, right? AI is something not of the future, not of the past, but of the present, colleagues. And these are very exciting times. At this point, I want to thank both Ms. Reifer and Mr. Gill for their contribution to the 60th anniversary lecture series. And I want to welcome them, Mr. Gill, to the stage to open the floor to any questions the audience may have with regard to the lecture.
So, Amanda, you started, you ended by suggesting that we need to invest a bit more in AI to help the Caribbean not be left behind. But, we talk a lot about small states, and this seems to be an issue in terms of computing power. How can we have enough computing power as a small state to not be left behind? Are we doomed to be left behind once we involve AI in this in sports? And therefore, my question is, should we then ban AI from being involved in sports, and can we ban it from being involved in sports?
Thank you, Professor. Such a great question. Thank you for that question. Let me answer it threefold. One, no, you can't ban it because the horse is out of the stable. I don't think that the regulators are going to be able to ban it. It's going to evolve to the point where it's going to be incorporated. The question is how speedy the regulators are going to be able to put some measure of regulation and legislation, and that will require enormous speed. In terms of the Caribbean, I spent some time talking about the Usain Bolts and show those images because I wanted to show what we have done without much. So sometimes it may be better to kind of put some blinkers on with what's going on in the world and focus on what we need to focus at home first. Let's start building something at home. Let's start putting, even if it's basic measures, at home before we consider competing worldwide. Because look at it, Prof. Look at what we did worldwide with some measure of resources. So I am very confident that if we are able, as a ecosystem, a sport ecosystem, with a common goal, we can give to the players what is required from a developmental point of view, and then we can take on the world. But we need to fix what we have to fix here first. And finally, the point about if we can, I mean, it's not going by, say, the internet. Remember when the internet was launched, there was a lot of fear-mongering again. There was a lot of, oh, this is the mark of the beast, all sort of thing. But you remember that, or you know, the Y2K. But the reality is, and I think it was important to also talk about the people that have developed it and invested in it and what they're saying. They're saying that since it's gone on open source, there's no going back. It's going to be interesting to see the dynamic. But what I would like for us, as not only as an institution, but as a region, just make a promise to ourselves to do something and see where that goes. I don't know if you want me to say anything about that.
Not just to add to that, but I have a question for you. We did both say that, you know, AI is still in its infancy stages, and we both did hint that in this part of the world we're always lagging behind. So the question to you, well, two-part question. I mean, how soon do you see AI impacting on sports here in Barbados? And, you know, to what extent do you see it impacting?
It is impacting, but they're not going to see it. So our competitors are involved in AI and sport everywhere. They are. I just went to the UK and actually looking to do a MOU with the Staffordshire University. They have a whole AI data center, and what they're doing, they're working with colleges and they're working with professional teams and stuff all across the UK already in creating platforms that they're actually using. But remember, they're not going to advertise it. They're not going to tell people that they're competitive edge. So all I'm saying there, Hayden, is that they're having these conversations, doing these things quietly behind the scenes. And what's going to happen is that you're going to realize, wait, what's going on with Australia? What happened? Will the BGB so bad? Or what's going on with the football? Or we can't even make a qualify. It's a race. It is a race to the finish line. And I'm saying that let me just say categorically that AI is not in its infancy stages. AI is advanced. It's just that we are now hearing about the AI that went on open source 5 weeks ago. But this has been developed for 2 decades. Just wanted to make that clarity there.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Brathwaite. Very thought-provoking presentation, Amanda. So I want to ask a question based on some of what I consider powerful contradictions that were exhibited in the presentation this evening, because you mentioned the fact that there are the big tech giants talking about let's pause, let's stop, you know, on hold on AI, but then we're saying, you know, we still need to press ahead. How do you balance that, and how do we get those involved in sports to really buy into it when there are those still saying, look, you know, let's really pause, you know?
You know, they got something called diplomacy. And listen, the world is fueled by capitalism. Believe nothing that comes out of the mouth. I wrong? Believe nothing that comes out of the mouth, using Bajan parlance, are these people. Because I recall someone from Google saying when it went on open source, the open letter went out, 2,000 researchers and developers. But yet Google said, listen, but we can't pause because so-and-so ChatGPT done got a million people and making so much money. So then they launched their one, and then the other. So like everything else in life, right? Yes, the ethical thing to do, yes, but which one of the 2,000 pause? None. In everything in life, there's good, there's evil, there's bad. We have to take from what is happening and make it ours. And as I said, you see that those blinkers are critical for us right now. There's a lot of noise going around. But the reality is that we can ill afford not to. And I think that Ryan, with the BOA, I think one of the takeaways from this lecture tonight, if you and I can have a conversation about the national federations and doing some sensitization, let's go on the road with this and talk to these people and let them know in Bajan parlance, however we got to put it, that is happening. We got to do those sensitization sessions and then help them. And this is where the university can come in, because we can help them. The faculty can help them start to develop tools that will work for them.
Good night again. First, let me say thanks as well to everybody who made this thing possible. Brothers talked about Star Trek going back. Telling your ears, but I ain't going to tell mine. But I do remember the whole advancement of technology in terms of what was shown to us when we were younger, in terms of what they have now. Almost everything we were shown is available. Where I'm going with this, however, is a different kind of angle. First thing first, I think you're right. And I think the brother made an interesting point in terms of what we're being told versus what is actually happening. And I think it would be an insult to the people of Barbados and the Caribbean if we did not invest all they had available into this, even if it's just from the standpoint of sports, which is a competitive war aspect, because believe it or not, the same thing you spoke about enhancing sports and machinery versus integrating it with man and that kind of stuff. There are people who are studying this from a weapons perspective. And although you didn't speak on it, anyone with enough intelligence would know when you speak about enhancing performances, especially from the standpoint of being victorious, you could apply that on a battlefield. And there's then no limit, especially if you're trying to win. And there's no one to regulate that, for obvious reasons. So I think in order to give our young people in the Caribbean as a whole the advantage, however little edge, because the truth is, what we are being told now has been out for maybe, I think the military is like 40 years ahead of us. They're only telling us this now because they got something else. This is old news, man. And we're debating what to do with old news in a day and age where technology changes from moment to moment. You get it released today, by next week, that's obsolete. But we hold it like it's the gospel, the Holy Grail. But anyhow, I want to thank you for that. I have a question, though, in terms of education, although you spoke on it in part. How do we integrate AI in terms of learning and education for the generations to come? Because a lot of us old folk, man, can really program and watch our phone. How do we get them, the younger ones, at the level where they can be not just competitive locally, also in sports, but internationally? That's the question.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that question and your comments. There was a part of my research that I looked at warfare, but I didn't want to run everybody out the lecture theater. But it's very scary what they're doing and tinkering with, very concerning. But to the question about education, and I'm glad that the deputy principal is here in this session tonight, because we gotta get serious. We have to, I don't want to say rip up and shred up, but because there's still, let me just say that there's still what we have at its core, from an educational standpoint, from a curriculum standpoint, matters. But there is technology, there's AI out there that can pretty much revolutionize how we deliver, how we teach. I mean, as I said, that's another lecture in itself in terms of the implementation and the practical implementation and infusing of AI. We can ill afford to ignore that as an educational institution. But if you look at the Creator is just an amazing being in that it's not coincidence that our kids, and some of you who are a little older than me, grandkids, are the way that they are. In terms of DNA, my friend Jared has a 1-year-old born the same day as me. He's in the audience. Hi, Jared. And she could do things. It's just like evolution. So I think that the Creator was absolutely perfect in the way that it has evolved, where our young people, our children, are just naturally expose and understand it without even, it's like it's osmosis or something, right? So I think that's where we start, because we know that they have capacity. So we just have to feed that. It is not impossible, you know? We have to feed that, we have to nurture it, we have to expose it. It may mean a conversation with the Ministry of Education. It has to happen. And I'm happy that we have a senator, I understand, in the House. I understand we may have, but let's take that message back to the powers that be, because that conversation needs to have happened 10 years ago, but it certainly needs to happen now. And we need to incorporate it into curriculum. We need to, just like, remember when we had to, what we did during COVID shows that we have capacity to do what needs to be done, because it was a pandemic. Let me not scare you, but this is pandemic times 100. And I'm not exaggerating. And I hope that, even though, you know, I use a little humor and stuff, this is a very serious topic. When Elon Musk can say this is an existential threat to humanity, it is not sci-fi. I hope you take that away tonight. So we got to get cracking. Thank you for that.
Good evening, Jamal Slocum. Just wanted to ask, in your capacity as Deputy Dean, and I know that my fellow alumnus, Dr. Aline, is also here, and his background is kinesiology as well. Trying to understand where the preliminary discussions are here at UE, not only as a campus, but at the regional level, as that correlates with your position. Specifically regarding, the university speaks often, coming out of sport, about high performance. You mentioned the Pace Like Fire program. What are the current steps that the university is endeavoring to take to look at that? And what are some of the time frames that we can see some efforts, or where do you think even the regional conversation needs to start on the implementation of AI?
Thank you, Jamal. I mentioned the Pace Like Fire. We, as a faculty, are extremely agile in terms of recognizing what we need to do as a faculty and where we need to go. I can't speak for the university. I see Professor Moore is here. I don't know if he wants the mic, but I can't speak. Maybe you may be better placed to speak to the conversation university-wide, regionally, as it relates to AI. I do know that recently we saw some lectures coming out from a regional perspective on AI and education and different departments. So I believe that the conversation is being had, Jamal. To what degree in terms of the institution, I cannot speak to specifically, but what I can say in terms of the Faculty of Sport, that we will be having these conversations. As I said, over the last 2 years, I've been working on my own private research in the area of innovation and sport, quietly, working with colleagues around the world. But this is something that you really can't, in the tech world, it don't make sense launching something when you're ready. You know, it's still very much in the R&D stages. But what I can say, which is a good thing, is that the recent open AI tools that are available now makes our discussions as a consortium global consortium looking at sport innovation, in particular the Pace Like Fire, we can rapidly scale up what we had planned, what probably would have taken 6 months to a year. It will be rapidly scaled up using the AI. So we're going to do it practically and then be able to launch it. Another point is that very, very happy with CWI coming out and reaching out to us to talk about Pace Like Fire. So it means now that if we do have a contract with CWI on the Pace Like Fire program, we can incorporate the AI and see rapid uptake at a regional level. That's for cricket, but I'm hoping that with this lecture, with us publicizing, us going back to our own spaces in terms of sport and other, that we can start those conversations and move the needle rapidly.
Thank you, colleagues, for your questions. I would now like to invite Dr. Henderson Carter, Head of the Department of History and Philosophy, University of the West Indies, Clearfield campus, to give the vote of thanks and closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. First, let me make the point that this has been an engrossing lecture. Professor Moore, Senator Drates, Mr. Wood, Mr. Gill, our distinguished lecturer tonight, Dr. Ennis, who's just left, and Dr. Aline, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My task is to deliver the vote of thanks for such a powerful lecture, a lecture that really had me scared at some point, but yet I am still on my feet and willing to fight the good fight. And I want to say, and I want to thank you, Amanda, for bringing this lecture at this time, because you're right, we are miles behind. And if Mr. Wood will do it, we could have this lecture verbatim in the newspapers, perhaps in 2 or 3 bites. I will see what I can do, to get CBC to publish this at prime time. But I believe that coming out of all of this, we have to get cracking as a nation to catch up with what is going on in the world today. If we don't, we'll be left behind in every single human endeavor, not only sports, but every single thing, education, healthcare, you name it. And I believe that this is, or should be, the start of a discussion here at KFIL on AI. And I hope that the Nation Publishing could partner with us, perhaps Deputy Principal, for a big town hall meeting on this campus to ensure that people in Barbados and in the Eastern Caribbean that we serve are brought up to speed with what is happening in the world. So, Mrs. Reifer, I want to thank you immensely for starting the discussion. And I hope that you will come back when we have this enormous town hall meeting sometime in the near future. Let's give her a big round of applause. And I also want to thank Mr. Gill for reminding us of the contribution of the Nation Publishing and the campus as well in terms of sports. Thank you, Mr. Gill, for coming and delivering your opening remarks. I want to thank Chair of this evening proceedings, Dr. Kevin Grant, for leading us so smoothly in this session. Give him a round of applause. I also want to thank Dr. Tara Ennis and her team. Now, Dr. Ennis is the chair of the subcommittee for this lecture series. And she has a team. Pat Atherley and Marie White, Tyka Ford. I want to thank you all for organizing these lectures. This is the 4th in the series. We have more to go. I also want to thank Mr. Lovell, Charleston Lovell, and his team at the Office of Marketing and Communications. And we have some of the members here, the photographers and the videographers here, who've been doing a great job, and they've been working late. I'm sure they were here at 9 o'clock this morning, and they'll probably get home at 11 o'clock tonight. Thank you, team, for an excellent job. We cannot forget our UE Usher Corps, who've been here for the entire series. And we have to my left our 2 ushers. Could you stand and let everybody see you? Eva and Julia. Thank you. We also want to give thanks to Caribbean Cuisine. They'll be providing the refreshments for this evening's lecture. Also, the UWI Kayville Cooperative Credit Union, Campus Security, Maintenance Department, and you, the audience, very attentive audience, a very important audience, and I'm sure that you're going to carry back home this news of how AI is taking over the world. It will frighten some people, but it will keep people, it would popularize this notion of what is happening in the world today. So I want to thank you so much for attending tonight. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.